Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Advanced Football X's and O's. So today we're going to be talking about some simple concepts involving the defensive line, and that would be stunting and slanting. So first we're going to talk about stunting. Stunting is very simple. It's just the idea that two of our linemen are going to cross, or it could be a lineman and linebacker, but two of our defenders will cross and exchange gap responsibilities. So normally, like we talked about, we might have just heads-up alignment gap responsibilities in the case of a run. But instead of what we could do on this right side is that maybe we would do a stunt so that they exchange gaps. Okay, so why would we do this? I guess we'll start with that. What if we're not confident with our ability to beat them one-on-one? In that previous situation, or if we just look at the left side of the line, we're asking basically our defensive end here to beat that tackle one-on-one. We're essentially asking our three technique here to beat this guard one-on-one. What if we weren't too confident in the pass rush abilities of our two right side linemen on the right side line here? We could instead have them kind of do some trickery, kind of add some confusion to the mix. If we know they're not going to beat their matchups, what if that's, I guess, like now retired Joe Thomas at the tackle, and we're not confident with the end beating him, and maybe our nose tackle, or our nose guard here, is just we know he's not going to get any pass rush there, so this might be a way for us to kind of add some confusion. So how does this really work? We don't just merely tell them to cross paths. What really happens here is that one of our linemen will kind of be the attacker, and one of our guys will be like the rapper, I guess we'll call it. I'm not sure what the actual technical terms there is, but here we could have our end, our defensive end, crash as fast as possible and attack this guard. Maybe he tries to cross his face, maybe he goes inside of him, but what we really want to do is we want this end to grab all the attention of this guard. And what's going to happen is that this offensive tackle, in the best case scenario for us, he helps the guard with this end here. Since this tackle's thinking pass rush, pass rush, pass rush, the end jumps inside of me, I need to grab him. In this moment, if we can occupy the guard with our end, and if we could also occupy the tackle with our end, hey, what does that allow our defensive tackle to do? Maybe he can slip around into the outside. And if we can occupy that tackle and that guard for just long enough, maybe he comes free, or maybe they just have a really hard time grabbing him and that he can get some type of pass rush in there. And like I said, we can do it the opposite way. We could have our inside interior rusher attack the offensive tackle, and we hope we can also grab the attention of the guard, and that we could have our defensive end wrap in. We want the attacker to go really quickly right on the snap, and our end is generally going to take a step up, maybe hesitate, maybe do some weird pump fakes or something like that, and then jump around the inside. We want this to be a really fast action, at least the attack and then the pull, but it needs to become simultaneous, and timing is a very big thing here. It doesn't always work. Well-taught linemen, good offensive lines generally aren't going to get beat by something like this. What it might do against a really good offensive lineman, you might not trick them to get a free pass rush, but what it might do is it might cause like the guard to take a few steps this way so that when our pass rusher comes inside, maybe he's slightly out of position. Like maybe he doesn't come out absolutely free, our end, but maybe we get the guard slightly in an awkward spot to where instead of being able to like stonewall him in the gap right here, maybe instead he has to kind of like push him away from the quarterback and we get some type of pass rush there. But generally, good offensive lines aren't really going to get beat by this. And this isn't exactly like a gotcha moment. This isn't something revolutionary or exactly like the best tool inside of a defensive tool set, but it is something that you do have available. And like I said, if you aren't confident in your one-on-one matchups, you could bust this out. Like I said, this isn't exactly the best thing in the world. A few years ago, when the Bucks had Greg Schiano as their head coach, they were stunting almost every passing down. I think it was something crazy, like 60% of their pass rush numbers, whatever, involves stunts. And this is when they had Gerald McCoy, and they still do, but he was getting irritated with the coaching staff. He wants to take his one-on-one matchups. He's one of the best three techniques in the league. He wants to go in there and kind of beat his man. But what they kept doing is they kept stunting him and stunting him and stunting him, and he felt like he wasn't getting his appropriate amount of reps at just beating his man because he felt like he could do so. And a lot of times he was kind of the distraction. Instead of using your best lineman to do the wrapping and stuff like that, they were having him being the attacker, and then they were wrapping the end in. we're kind of sacrificing our three technique. In a way, if this guard was extremely, extremely, extremely concerned about a really good three technique here, maybe he does go that much more outside to help the tackle, but you can only do so much. You can only do it so many times. There's going to be diminishing returns with it. It's not going to work the 10th time as well as it works the first time. So there are drawbacks to it. Some teams might do this a lot. Some teams might not do it much at all. Also, I don't think you really want to ever see this against the run. Only if you had a very, as a coach, you had a very specific scenario where you know they're doing some specific run and you knew you had some specific stunt to beat it. Because in my opinion, there's a lot of risk involved with this. Like, say they did some type of handoff to the outside on the left here. If we did a stunt where our tackle dove in and our end had to come out, like I said, how the end kind of hesitates before going out, what if this tackle just stepped up and just sealed him? You have nobody protecting the edge in this situation because our end jumps in and leaves the edge exposed, and then our tackle has the easiest, almost like a dry block almost, or just whatever it might be, just on this three technique that has to come out. So it might work once in a while and you might get a really good stop because you did something, but generally against the run, you want as little variance as possible. You want to be consistent. We're going to see 30 rushing attempts this game. We want to be consistent on all 30 rush attempts. If you mix in stuff like this and then 2 of those 30 attempts, you absolutely lose the edge. That running back could be going 60, 70 yards, and that is, you're shooting yourself in the foot at that point. So stunting, I think you almost never really want to see this on rushing downs unless you have a very clear and concise plan and you're not just randomly throwing it in. So that's stunting. The next idea is slanting. Like stunting, we're shifting gap assignments because really that's what we're doing with stunting, but since stunting we're doing it mainly against the pass, it's not exactly switching gap assignments, but with slanting that's exactly what we're doing. With the previous videos, we've talked about kind of stopping the run with the defensive line. The simplest way to look at it is that we just need to have all the gaps filled. Here, we kind of are in an extreme advantage with 3 linebackers here, but essentially, with even only 2 of these linebackers, we can fill all of our gaps. That's the simple way of looking at it. However, what if we don't want to simply go at our gaps straight ahead? What if we slanted? So here, what if they ran to the left? What if we slanted all of our linemen to the left because we expected it? So we just kind of jumped. Everyone jumps one gap to their left, or I guess here it's a little awkward with the 3 technique in this position. But we could slant our linemen, especially these right 2 linemen. I guess it might be easier to visualize this if we talked about like a run to the right. It's a little bit easier to visualize the kind of the slanting motion there. And that the idea is that we're just exchanging gaps towards one side of the line. You could slant with 1 lineman, with 2 linemen, with all the linemen. The idea is just that we're jumping a gap that we're not exactly lined up in front of. So the advantage here would be that maybe we get that much better on the run. Like if we slant towards where the run is, we just get to it that much faster. And like if we're expecting a run kind of across the face of the line here, or like we talked about it to the left, this guy might be able to beat the center like that if the center's not expecting it. We might be able to jump in front of him, beat him really quickly. And this really lends itself to one-gapping defensive lines, which we talked about in the previous video, where one-gapping defensive lines, we're usually using agile, maybe undersized linemen, and we're not looking to maul the guy in front of us to get to the run. We're trying to beat him with quickness. We're trying to fly through our gaps and really shoot them, try and get in the backfield. Slanting 100%. We're trying to jump across the faces of our defensive linemen. And generally, this happens so fast. Tape of it, very good defensive lineman. Once again, I'm just going to bring up Gerald McCoy being a Bucs fan. It's amazing how some of these really quick defensive linemen can fly across the face of their offensive lineman without even getting touched. Because a lot of the times these offensive linemen on this run, he might kind of take a step straight at the guy, and if he jumps quick enough and fast enough, that offensive lineman takes one bad step, kind of overextends, and instantly you see him starting to grab backwards, trying to just grab anything on that defensive lineman to try and stop him because he just got an outrageous jump across from him. What if we slant the wrong way? So what if in this situation we slanted right and the run is to the left? Well, what we would do is that we still need to seal this edge so that we'd have our backside linebacker jump it. And like we said with stopping the run, as long as we have every gap filled or assigned to a lineman and we stay true to our gaps, we're never really going to be that bad off. There might be situations where we're slightly out of position and maybe an offensive lineman can turn us in a bad way, but generally it's not that bad of a deal, and there's actually plenty of tape you can find out there where, since this is a run to the left, maybe these offensive linemen are taking super lateral steps this way. Oftentimes, one of these linemen, this three technique here, if the guard kind of laterally steps and he expects the center to kind of come over, he might be able to shoot this backside gap kind of behind the offensive lineman fast enough so that he kind of just like wheels in the back and kind of tackles the run from behind. That's actually really common when you slant opposite of the run. So it's not all bad there. And like I said, this is mainly against the run. We don't really want to slant against the pass unless we blitz, which we'll talk about in a second. But mainly, this is kind of stunting and slanting. Stunting, we like to do it against the pass. It's kind of an artificial way to try and generate some pass rush. Mainly you want to do it if you don't have too much confidence in your defensive lineman, or maybe it's something you do with your good defensive lineman, but you only mix it in 2 or 3 times a game because you expect to get some type of value out of it if you can surprise an offensive line with it. And then slanting really is useful against the run. We can switch some gaps around, we can we can obviously do some crazy stuff, which we'll go over in a second, but really we're just kind of exchanging gaps, and this is really useful if you have undersized, fast defensive linemen. You shoot gaps, and you're constantly switching it up between left and right, and whatever you're doing, maybe you mix this in with stunts once in a while, but not very that often, and it's very, very especially deadly when we mix this in with blitzes, which we'll go over right now. So, when we blitz, oftentimes we don't just want to blitz a linebacker to the gap right in front of them. Kind of like what I initially showed with the previous slant. If we slant like this, we might blitz this linebacker on purpose, because like we kind of said with stunting, we like the idea that maybe this defensive end jumping in grabs the attention of this tackle, and that by our linebacker blitzing in behind it, maybe he comes free, or maybe, like we said, we get the offensive tackle kind of in a weird spot. Or in this situation, now the running back has to come all the way out if that's his responsibility. It has to cross all the way across the face of the quarterback to come pick this blitz up. Where if we kind of didn't slant this at all, and what if we just kind of had our defensive end come in here, through here, and maybe we blitz just kind of in this gap also, that running back doesn't have as far to go. That's not really a good reason to do this, but this is kind of how it works. And what if we blitz the corner? If we blitz this corner, maybe we don't want this defensive end to also hit the same gap as him. So maybe we slant everything to the opposite side. That could be really powerful. And then we could also slant linebackers. Some of the more creative defensives in the league, I think one of the popular ones is like the Green Bay Packers, when I think it's called their psycho front, I think is what they call it, where they kind of take away one of the defensive linemen or 2 of the defensive linemen. They bring like 1 or 2 extra linebackers, and they just kind of do this weird, they just pre-snap, they give a lot of weird looks to the defense. But what they'll often do with it is that they'll blitz in a really weird way at the linebackers. They'll have like the tackle shoot like this, and then maybe he wraps and shoot like this, and then the other linebacker wraps around and does that. So we can mix our slants and our stunts with our blitzes to kind of create movement, to try and create some confusion. And it's the same type of ideas. When we slant, we're just moving over a gap, and not only can we slant, we can blitz off this to kind of take advantage of this movement. Or like when we stunted, we can do weird things where maybe the stunt is between a defensive lineman and a linebacker, or we do some weird things where we stunt and then we mix in a blitz with it to really try and just expedite, whatever, I guess that's not the right word for it, but to really take advantage and to really exploit, I guess would be the right word, kind of the movement that we're creating by the offensive line having to shift around and really make some decisions. So that's slanting and stunting. Done, how much is it done lately? I guess slanting has slowly been dying off a little bit, I would like to say, because I think teams have gotten so good at finding ways to manipulate it and beat it. I think zone running really helps beat slanting to stop the run. I think the more teams have slowly been doing zone runs more and more, and I think we've seen power slightly go away, although there has been a slight comeback. That's the NFL is cyclical. One thing's like really in vogue, and then it goes away, and then the next thing comes, and it's just in cycles. I think right now we're kind of in the era of zone running is the thing, and power running's kind of taking a backseat. So I think slanting has kind of gone away with that. I think the more you see power, the more you might see slanting. Stunting, it's more of a coaching thing. Different coaches, like I said, Greg Schiano stunted as much as he possibly could against the pass, whereas other coaches, they don't like it. They don't view it as being very good. Like I said, like Gerald McCoy absolutely hated it. Your players might not like it because they feel like it's out of their hands. A lot of these guys are ultra confident. They just want to beat the guy in front of them. So stunting, you see it a little bit more than slanting, I would like to say, but it's still not that common. I think in college football, you probably see stunting a bit more, where these offensive linemen might not be as well coached and they can catch them off guard a bit more. But really, the good offensive lines, I dare you to find some tape of stunting beating the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. it would be very hard to find. You're going to be searching through a lot of games, I feel like, to try and find that. So it's just some artificial ways to try and help stop the run and try and stop the pass. Next up, I think I'm going to make a video on RPOs, since that's the really big idea right now, run pass options. We're really getting to why you do these things. I think that's the coolest part of RPOs. It's kind of the progression of why coaches started doing them. And that's, I think, what we'll get into next. So hope you guys liked the video, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment and like the video. See you guys.